Guru ki, Prabhupada ki, Prabhupada Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Written from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. This chapter is entitled, I've Done My Part. Tamal Krishna Goswami told Prabhupada that he had offered a prayer in the temple that morning while standing before Krishna and Balaram. Krishna has done so many miracles, he said, so it would not be very amazing if he kept Prabhupada alive. And Balaram, who was supporting all creation, would not be weakened if he gave Prabhupada a little strength. In this way, Tamal Krishna says, we may all pray to Krishna Balaram to save you. We are not very important, but still they may hear. No, Prabhupada said, you are all pure devotees with no other motives. Srila Prabhupada regarded the petitions of his disciples as expressions of sincere affection, not at all improper spiritually, but he pointed out that it was ultimately up to Krishna. He had his plan. In any case, Prabhupada said that he would be all right. He told the story of a sage who blessed persons in different ways. The sage blessed a prince to live a long life, since after death he would be punished for his sensual life. The sage also blessed an ascetic to die at once, so as to be relieved of the suffering of his austerities and receive his pious rewards. But when asked to bless a pure devotee, the sage says that because the devotee had already obtained the lotus feet of Krishna, his condition would be the same whether he lived or died. Prabhupada knew even better than his disciples that there was much he could do if he remained in the world. But he simply wanted to see what Krishna desired. He saw strong evidence, however, that his life was about to end, at least according to the conditions of his physical body, and this in itself indicated that Krishna's desire was that he would soon leave this world. That's a good point. The body's deteriorating, and that's Krishna's desire. It's not, if Krishna didn't want it, the body wouldn't be deteriorating. GPC men met and decided that aside from Prabhupada's will, which would secure the ISKCON properties, and aside from making all the bank accounts within ISKCON secure, there were also a few questions which they should put before Prabhupada before it was too late. These questions, such as how future disciples would be initiated, would have to be answered, otherwise they would become a source of speculation and havoc after Srila Prabhupada's departure. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, entitled The Forest of Enjoyment. And this verse is 41. Karma vilam avalambya tata apada katanchin narakad vimukta punarapivam samsaradvani vartamano naraloka saptam upayati eva evam upari gatopi. Translation: when the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruit of activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to the lower planetary system. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. Please repeat: when the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruit of activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to the lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. Srila Prabhupada's purport in this regard, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Brahmati Kona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. C.C. Madhya 19151. Even if one wanders for many billions of years from the time of creation until the time of annihilation, one cannot get free from the path of material existence unless one receives shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee. As a monkey takes shelter of the branch of a banyan tree and thinks he is enjoying the conditioned soul, not knowing the real interest of his life, takes shelter of the path of karma kanda, fruit of activities. Sometimes he is elevated to the heavenly planets by such activities, and sometimes he again descends to earth. This is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Brahmanda Brahmati. However, if by Krishna's grace one is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of the Guru, by the mercy of Krishna he receives lessons on how to execute devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In this way, he receives a clue of how to get out of his continued struggle up and down within the material world. Therefore, the Vedic injunction is that one should approach a spiritual master. The Vedas declare, Tam Vyaganartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet. Mundaka Upanishad 1-2-12. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the Supreme Personality of God advises, Tadvidi Pradipatela Pariprishnena Sevaya Upatekshantite Jnanam Jnanina Tattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21 gives similar advice. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shri Uttamam Shabde Pare Janishnatam Brahmanyupa Shamashrayam. A person who seriously desires to achieve real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual masters. Similarly, Vishwanath Chakravarti, a great Vaishnava, also advises Yasya Prasadad Bhagavat Prasada. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of Krishna. This is the same advice given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. This is essential. One must come to Krishna consciousness, and therefore one must take shelter of a pure devotee. Thus one can become free from the clutches of matter. Om Ganantimarandasya Ganantina Slakaya Chakramalitam Yana Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karoti Vachalam Pangavalagayate Grim Yakipatam Vande Shri Grim Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhinitananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruit of activity, he may be elevated by his pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. For this verse that some of us chant before class, Mukam Kroti Vachalam, Pangam Lagayatigram, Yet Kripa Tamaham Vande Shugrim Dinataram Nam. This means that by the mercy of a spiritual master, a dumb person can recite eloquent poetry, a lame person can walk, can climb mountains, and a blind person can see stars in the sky at night. So, of course, we're not simply just looking for some material benediction that all the lame, blind, and dumb people are queuing up for benedictions from the spiritual master. That's not really what they should be looking for, because he's a spiritual master, he's not a material master. The spiritual master, the pure devotee, has all material mystic perfections, the mystic siddhis. They are waiting with folded hands to serve the pure devotee, but he doesn't like to use them, because one thing is, why would it be that a pure devotee who has these powers at his disposal doesn't use them? Anybody say?
It's a waste of time.
Waste of time? How would it be a waste of time?
Because you're not engaged in spiritual activities, therefore you're wasting your time.
Yeah. So waste of time is one thing, but wouldn't it be, maybe it would help people become more faithful if they could cure diseases or make blind people see and things like that? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
But there's still stuff in the cycle to keep working there.
The Gita would be Bhagavad Gita.
Oh yeah.
And they'd be able to walk to the temple. Any other? I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just digging into it a bit more. Anything else?
Is can become distracting for general public what spiritual life is all about, and then will be interpreted as some curing, etc. And that it becomes focusing on the people who really spiritual life when it is the real thing.
Yeah. So both are right. That it is a waste of time in one sense, and the spiritual master does not want to attract cheap following. That if he's got to spend all his time just healing the sick, then what they're going to do once they get well, they're going to go out and enjoy again, and they're going to just do the same things which put them in that position in the first place. So therefore, it is a waste of time, because all they're going to do is think, oh, I'm great, I'm able to run about again, so I'll just go and enjoy myself, because the desire to enjoy separately from Krishna is still in the heart. And even if they make a deal, the spiritual master says, okay, I'll let you walk again, as long as you serve Krishna. And yeah, okay, we'll do that. Okay, what are you going to do to serve Krishna? I'll come and serve Krishna soon, I just got to do this one thing. And it keeps us in the material world, birth after birth, isn't it? We always find a reason to avoid surrendering to Krishna. Maya has given us so many reasons. And we come up with these reasons, but actually they're excuses. Please excuse me from the mercy of Krishna. Please excuse me from going back to Godhead. So if we can accept that ourselves, then that's a good thing. Not necessarily that we're on the platform of, okay, now that he said this, we have to completely not have any reason not to be fully surrendered to every single thing which is required of us at every single moment of the day. Ultimately, we're working towards that, but we shouldn't just use working towards it as an excuse for not making steps towards it. There has to be a plan. And if you find that we're not making progress, then sometimes what you can do is you pick a date in the calendar and say, by this date, I'm going to be chanting 4 rounds a day or 8 rounds a day, come what may. By this date, I'm going to be chanting 16 rounds. By this date, I'm going to be chanting 64 rounds. Or I'm going to be shaved up, or I'm going to be giving a certain amount of donation to the mission, or I'm going to be doing something, making some progress, even if the progress is small. And the Bhakti Prabhupada Maharaj once says that better to make progress than aim for perfection, because sometimes we aim for perfection all too soon and we don't get it and we think, oh, it's too much. So we just give up. It's all or nothing. We read the book where in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, so abandon everything, surrender to me. I think, okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'm ready. Here we go. Oh no, it's too much. Can't do it. So it's not like we have to do it all or we can't do anything. Gradual increments. Of course, we have to also bear in mind that the material world is a dangerous place. It's not necessarily that we do have another 10, 20, 50 years. Who knows? So depending on our realization as to this situation in the material world, then that will be our impetus, how much we're prepared to surrender. And Prabhupada did say that the trouble with his disciples is that they don't take Maya seriously. Think that we can still enjoy. And of course, the nature of the living entity is to enjoy. And Srila Prabhupada says that we don't know how to. We think in the material world we're actually enjoying, but we're simply gaining little bits of temporary relief. It's not positive enjoyment. So I think we can take Prabhupada's word on that, being that he's Krishna's ambassador of the spiritual world. And he's come to tell us, you guys are like frogs in the well. You think you know everything. You think you... even we get a little bit of knowledge from Krishna consciousness, and then we think, nobody can tell me anything now. We become puffed up with that little knowledge that we knew nothing of before. And then the very people who have given us that knowledge, they can't tell us anything else because we've got enough. And this is another aspect of animal propensity called defending. Even we can use Krishna conscious philosophy for defense, but it's not actual proper use of philosophy. Actually, when I was in the Bhakti program, then Bhakti leader Rohini Nandan Prabhu, he says that sinful activity, generally the devotees are required to follow 4 regulative principles, avoid sinful life, etc. He says, but that's, even if one has some accidental fall down, that can be cleared fairly easily. But what is more dangerous is having a philosophical fall down, making some philosophy to justify our devious motives, or to justify our lack of surrender, or to justify our opinions, our attachments. And so that is more dangerous, because therefore we're not accepting the true path. Therefore, Prabhupada said it's better to be an honest street sweeper than a charlatan meditator. So honesty is always the best policy. And another thing which is very dangerous is politics. This is, I was also told by the same devotee at the same time, that in one Bhakti class, it says that sinful activity that creates it clouds the consciousness, but philosophical deviation and political manipulation, to harm other devotees or to bring ill repute to the movement, then that is a major fall down, because that's something which is also very difficult to correct. So here it's emphasized that we should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So that means that he gives us the lessons where we're going to make spiritual advancement. And this is the most important thing. It doesn't really matter so much what our material situation is. That's always changing. Who knows what that's going to be? And the spirit soul has tolerated so many situations. We've tolerated being in the body of an insect. We think we can't tolerate like a blister on our toe, or can't tolerate a little bit of hassle from the government nagging us for something, or some other thing from work. There's so many little hassles we get, but we've had so much hassles in all sorts of species of life. The soul is indestructible, cannot be killed by any weapon whatsoever. The soul is immutable, it's eternally the same. Only the body is changing. And therefore the spiritual master's duty is to guide the disciple back home to Krishna, to reawaken the disciple's original Krishna consciousness, the consciousness which is already there. Just as the fire is contained within wood, just like this book stand here, there's fire in that wood. We can't see it. I touch it, I'm not getting burnt. I don't see any flames. The Bhagavatam is not going up in fire. But if we put a bit of fire to this, or create enough heat, it will burst into flames. The fire is contained within it. It will bring the fire out. So similarly, when fire of Krishna consciousness, when we connect that fire with the bona fide spiritual master, the pure devotee, who is without any material motivation, then he teaches us how to also become like fire again. And then we start to realize this Krishna consciousness is actually what I've been looking for. Not just all my life, but all my lives in this material world. We've been looking for this Krishna consciousness. Krishna is our eternal friend. And we've been looking for that eternal friend in so many people in this world. Or maybe as a bird species, we're looking for our eternal friend in the form of some lifelong mate. Or in the human species, or we look for a lifelong friend as a child. How many times have we thought we've got a friend here, a lifelong friend, and then we separate, time separates them somehow or another. Sometimes it's money that separates them, or sometimes some other thing that we let each other down. The fact of the matter is, every living entity in the material world is eternally related to Krishna, and we're all looking for Krishna. But because we have this I, me, and mine consciousness, then we're trying to satisfy ourselves first and foremost. And ultimately, if anybody gets in the way of that, then we've got to move them out the road. Whereas Krishna is a friend who will never let us down. But somehow or another, we'll put our trust in so many other fallible soldiers of the material world, but yet we don't put our trust in Krishna. So just this is our faulty mentality. So the incremental surrender to Krishna helps us to come to the point where we do trust that taking these steps forward in Krishna isn't going to make me any less. We are going to become more. So we have to, it was interesting point in the verse on the purport that even we may be able to improve our material condition some way, just like for many people on planet Earth just now, they never had it so good. And this goes on from time to time, that people are enjoying some kind of wealth or lack of misery in some way or another, or if they're pious and they get some elevation to higher planetary systems where they can enjoy a great amount of material pleasure for a long, long period of time, still that stock of pious reactions does diminish. It's basically just like if you've got an ice cream cone and every time you lick it, it's diminishing in size, isn't it? You're enjoying it, it's going down, 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 down. And then you think, oh, that was great. I'm going to have another one. I have no money left. Okay, I need to go back to work and earn some money so I can give another one. So that's it. Human life and planet Earth is an opportunity where our karma, our activities will dictate the future. In this way, we are the masters of our own destiny. And because sometimes we think this one life is all in all, we think, oh, I'm not really the master of my destiny because I can't control this, I'm suffering this, or I'm experiencing that, or some frustration or another, some shortage in life. But no, you still are the master of your destiny because it depends. Your destiny is determined by how you act in any given circumstances, how you react. By blaming everyone else doesn't remove the karma which is due to us. It's not that the karmic reaction comes along and say, no, I shouldn't have this situation, it should be that one, it should be someone else. Or why am I having to suffer? Why are we asking that question? Because there's an answer to it. Why am I having to suffer? Because it's due you, it's not someone else's. And this is the thing, if we can accept that, then accepting suffering in the material world becomes more tolerable. The biggest problem with it is to reject the suffering, isn't it? If we have some problem, we try to reject it, we're in denial of it. Just like the other day, I had an accident, and if I'm just in denial that there's nothing wrong with my arm, and I try to carry on as normal, then I'm going to have another accident. If there's something wrong in some way or another and we try to deny it, if we try to deny it, basically we try to deny that we're suffering in this material world, and we're all going about with this false smile on our face that, yes, actually I'm enjoying. but we can see behind it, the eyes are not looking like they're enjoying. It's not just a case of like putting a freeze frame smile on your face and that means you must be happy. It's what's the satisfaction, the depth of satisfaction within. That even within whatever challenge comes our way, we can remain steady in our Krishna consciousness. This means that we're relishing Krishna consciousness. And if we're experiencing that joy in Krishna consciousness, then we won't be attracted to what the material world has to offer. And this is an important thing, is that naturally, because the soul wants to enjoy, then we may be attracted to improving our material situations and keep on improving. But that improvement never stops because the material energy is endlessly mutable. We're always being enticed by something bigger, better, smaller, faster. There's always something. And then just as we're thinking that we're clinching everything we want, then something else comes along. For devotees, we're very fortunate because we're not so bad. But we see, unfortunately, so many people, they're wasting their valuable human form of life, continually trying to improve their lot, and even they don't realize that their lot is vastly improved, but they want to change it again, simply in the mode of passion. Like, okay, this year's kitchen is all white, a couple of years' time, it's all black. Oh, I can't invite my friends round because I need a new kitchen. So they're spending thousands and thousands of pounds every few years, and then throwing all perfectly good stuff out, and then we're wondering why the planet's in a state. You drive down any street, any day of the week, practically you see things getting thrown out which are perfectly good. So this is just abusing the material resources. Ishopanishad mentions that we should accept that which is necessary as our quota. So we should be satisfied with whatever we have in life. If it's functioning, then continue using it. Why we have to change just because we're worried what a neighbour might say about about not having the new colour of fridge. The fridge is still working. And then, of course, we have this planned obsolescence where the manufacturers know, they practically can tell you when it's going to break down. When I was studying mechanics, we did some experiments to show and some calculation to show how many times a car could drive over a bridge before the bridge would break, and how much weight would drive over it, how many times. And you can do this simply by, you get some materials, and they have a thing called the coefficient of friction, and it tells you that how much wear and tear is going to be over this. So therefore they can determine like a certain part in a car is going to break down by 75,000 miles, and therefore you'll need to get a new camshaft. So they've got them sitting in the shop waiting on you. You don't know it. You're just driving along thinking, nice car. Oh, what's that noise? Take it in the garage. Oh, that's your camshaft. Do you get a new one? Oh, okay, where'd I get it? Go to the shop, get it, and it's sitting there waiting. Why is it sitting there waiting? Because they know it's going to break, because they designed it like that. And this is material world planned obsolescence, just so that we keep working and just keep giving more and more and keeping everything going round, and it's not sustainable because they're just using up so much resources. And the Lord is Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnamidachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all the emanations from him are complete wholes. And even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains a complete whole. He remains complete balance. So this earth planet is a complete whole. Krishna has given us everything we need for living in it. But he's also given us the intelligence to also utilize it in such a way that it's sustainable. And that's mentioned in Ishopanishad also. If one continues to work in this way, one can live for thousands of years, so it's perpetual. And it's not so much there now, but it was even only 20 years ago. When you went to India, it was still very much remnants of this sustainable system. It's basically like the original eternal sustainable system. people were living more simply, and things would be able to continue like that. But because following the Western example, then we're finding that that system which was already there has been left aside. A simple thing that I noticed was that when people perhaps they eat out, so when you used to eat out in India, you'd get it in leaf plates and clay cups, and then when they're finished with it, they throw it out. They don't need to use washing up liquid. They don't need to have dishwasher. They don't need to throw plastic cups and paper plates away, which are coated in plastic. The leaf plates would go out and the cows would eat them. The clay cups would just get put on a pile that would go back into the earth, and then they'd come back up again. So in this way, people just used to throw things away. But now, because they have given up these simple technologies, then they're throwing away plastic, and they don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. They didn't need an infrastructure, a waste disposal infrastructure. The waste disposal infrastructure was nature, because they were using natural products. So this is, if we get back to that and live a sustainable life, then we can live happy even within this human form of life, within this earth, and accept our lot and not hankering. This hankering and lamenting, Nashoshisi, Vinanshisi, Kankshati. So this hankering and lamenting is keeping us perpetually taking birth again and again. We're lamenting for something we lost, or wished we had, or wish we could get. We're hankering for something we want, and all the while we're being distracted from our goal in life, which is to look inwards, to really try to understand who are we, what is our purpose in this human form of life, what is the best I can do with this human form of life. You know, if the best we can do is just accumulate loads of money or loads of property, then that's a bit of a poor. Was it one friend devotee said to me, you know, some people are so poor that all they have is money. And that's a much more poorer situation than someone who's got Krishna consciousness, who's developing love of Godhead. Materially, they may have not much, but that's a much more valuable thing. Devotees actually find themselves sometimes in situations where they get so much material things at their disposal that even the non-devotees become envious of them. And like one time, Prabhupada was picked up by the devotees at the airport, and they'd hired a Rolls Royce to pick him up. And the reporters were envious, they were complaining about it, and Prabhupada says, so you pick up the president, you know, or the prime minister in a big car. What about the representative of God? Surely he says, what is this Rolls Royce? It's simply metal and plastic. He said it should be a gold car. No, and it's not for him. He's not thinking, you know, I should have the best. He's thinking that because it's Krishna's representative. You know, so we're thinking this is on behalf of Krishna. Just like some ambassador goes to another country and then they're met with all the dignitaries of that country and they're given 5-star hotel reception, etc. It's not just like they're left on their own to make their own way and nobody pays them any attention. You know, if the Queen of England was going to America or something like that, then she'd be greeted with great respect. Because basically she's the figurehead of the country, she's representing the country. You know, if America had no respect for England, they would have no respect for figurehead. So it's about the respect for Krishna. That's why it's there. And there was another occasion that there was a room conversation. Disciples with Prabhupada were there in the room, and some other guests were there and reporters. And there was typically the devotees would put an asana there for Prabhupada to sit on, but he wouldn't sit. He wasn't sitting on it, and because he knew that some of the reporters were envious, So then they were asking various kind of barbed questions, and they said, "And who's this seat for?" He says, "Normally I sit here, but because you're envious, I'm not sitting on it." He just hit them right between the eyes with it, "Because you're envious." And then they started asking various questions, and Prabhupada would say, so they were asking, "Oh, where did you get your money from, and how much money did you got?" And then so Prabhupada would just very openly throw it back in their face. "Yes, we're spending so much money every day, and we have so many cars, and how many temples we have, and how many schools we have." Because one time Hariswari Prabhu was here, and Hariswari was Srila Prabhupada's personal servant for quite a while. And I asked him about envy, because I was experiencing that someone was causing some trouble out of envy. And he said that Prabhupada told him that envy, he says, many things can be used in Krishna's service, but envy has to be given up. It has no practical use in Krishna's service. So for envious of someone's advancement, or envious of something that someone has, or someone's knowledge, etc., then it's not practical. It's not going to make us more advanced. It's not going to make us better off in any way. Do something about it. Take it as an example. Otherwise, ultimately, the envy is envy of Krishna, that Krishna is the supreme controller, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't be better than Krishna, but I want to be. I want to be God. I want to be the enjoyer. Why Krishna has to have all the fun? But Krishna's saying, you also have the fun. And this is why he's asking us back. You thought you were going to enjoy material world. You're not having a great time here, so come back. I was saying, what is it they say about envy? It's like, they used to say, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like you don't like your face, so you cut your nose off. Is that going to make it any better? Or was it they say also about envy? It's like drinking poison and expecting another person to die? Or was that about envy? Well, it's generally motivated by envy. So if we try to harm someone else, we harm ourselves. Therefore, we have to learn to tolerate. It's not really much of a choice. If we want to make advancement in spiritual life, we have to learn to tolerate. Sometimes we think we're the only ones that's doing the tolerating, and we forget that we're actually all having to be tolerated by somebody. Some people we find more tolerable than others, and some people find us easy to tolerate, and some people just they haven't got the time of day for us, and we have to accept that fact that it's not everybody's going to like everybody. But if everyone becomes a devotee, then we can appreciate that this person has decided to give their time to Krishna. This person has given their energy, or even if they just give some donation, we can appreciate that. Whatever someone's doing for Krishna and Krishna consciousness, then we can appreciate that, because devotees are so rare. Srila Rupa Goswami says anyone who chants Hare Krishna is a devotee. So therefore we can offer some respect, but not that if we see some karmi saying Hare Hare as we're going down the street, we're going to offer obeisances to them. We have to be discriminatory there as well. So once there's this, how's it go? Yeah, so once a devotee was in the jungle, found himself in the jungle somehow or another, and the jungle is a very dangerous place. And then after some time, he came across a lion in the jungle, and the lion was looking at him, licking at his lips, and he realized, I'm powerless against this lion. So he started praying to Krishna, Lord, please make this lion a devotee. You're within the heart of everyone. Please make it a devotee. Please make it a devotee. So then he looks up and he sees the lion going, Sarira Vidjajal Jidendriya Tehikal. So the lion just says, it's become a devotee, but it's in a lion's body, so it's going to follow its nature and it's going to munch him anyway, because he's the prasadam. So we have to use our discrimination not to put ourselves into a dangerous situation. And we have to discriminate between the type of association which is conducive for our advancement in devotional service and that which is actually detrimental. And if we're stuck in a situation where we have to work with non-devotees who obviously their association is detrimental, then we just try to minimize their association. Don't take them seriously. They have their opinions, so everyone's got an opinion. It's just an opinion. A friend of mine once told me, which is a good one, if someone's giving you their opinion, they're trying to force it on you, you can just say, like, oh, you're entitled to your opinion, even if you are wrong. So our opinion is Krishna's opinion. That's the opinion we want. Our opinion is the opinion of the spiritual master. If the spiritual master says this is not, we argue with him. We say, okay, this is good. I might not see it. My mind might want to argue. Like the spiritual, we may be doing something in Krishna's service, or chanting, or service, or attitude, or whatever, and we think it's all right, and the spiritual master says, no, you've got it wrong. So we have to have enough faith that the spiritual master knows better than we do, that we say, well, I think I'm right, but I must have it wrong because he's saying so. So in this way, we've got more faith in the spiritual master, and by having that faith, then we break through this limited concept of Krishna that we may have. Krishna is adhokshaja, he's aparushya, he's beyond the range of the senses. So if he's beyond the range of the mind and senses, then how are we going to capture Krishna? By our own mind and senses, by our own reasoning, by our own mental or intellectual endeavors. Krishna is only going to be understood through devotional service, and the spiritual master is the one who directs us how to do devotional service. So when we argue back with the spiritual master, what we're saying is just excuse me from consciousness. And the spiritual master has to think of ways and means to help the disciple understand. Actually, if someone's been in a dark place for a long time, as soon as they come into the light, they might not see things properly. Maybe somewhat blinded by the light, or they maybe still want to close their eyes because it's too painful to open them. The spiritual master is just trying to open them very slightly, just like we see this prayer often, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilkamya Tasma Shigirave Namaha. So the spiritual master's forcing open our eyes with the torch of knowledge because we're trying to hold them tight shut. We know what's right for us, but it's like, you're sick and you should take the medicine, but it tastes terrible, so you don't want it. And then your mum's saying, just take it anyway. About a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But sometimes he has to give the medicine without the sugar as well. It's not like everything's going to be sweet balls. Oh, my dear disciple, here, have a sweet ball. And if you can do some devotion service, that would be very nice. It might be like that. Or sometimes it might be, you're a nonsense. You're not going to go back home to Godhead in that frame of mind. You need to buck up your ideas. This is what it's about. And so sometimes that's there because the spiritual master is concerned about the eternal well-being of the disciple, not simply about how the person feels at this point in time. Of course, the spiritual master will always try to be sensitive, but at the same time, if someone's doing something which is very dangerous for him, then the priority may be that the spiritual instruction has to be there regardless of however the person's willing to accept it or not. And we see that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the first thing he did is he chastised Arjuna, indirectly calling him a fool. Asochanam vasochas tvam pragyavadam shabashase gatasuna gatasam chanana shochanti panditaha. Anybody know the translation? Well, speaking learned words, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So when Arjuna has said to Krishna, Karpanya dosho bhata swabhava, now I am disciple and soul surrendered unto you, please instruct me. because he understood he was bewildered about his duty. He didn't know what he should do, what he shouldn't do. He had lost his focus, his sense of discrimination. So immediately Krishna took charge of him. He took him under his shelter and said, "You're acting like a fool, but actually your reasoning is faulty. And your eternal spirit soul, you know better than this. How have these impurities come upon you? These are not befitting a person like that." So the spirit soul, we are all spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna, and we have somehow forgotten what we have known forever. We've forgotten that devotional service. We've forgotten that connection with Krishna, our relationship with Krishna. So the spiritual master, he is trying to help us to remember that. So therefore, that person is your best friend. Just as Krishna is your best friend, your spiritual master is your best friend also, because he's a representative of Krishna who's going to reveal Krishna to you. He's going to reveal the holy Dham to you. He's going to reveal who you are. And we are looking for something in the material world, but he's going to convince us that what we're looking for is the wrong thing, and what he has to offer is much, much more valuable. And this Brahmanda verse here, Brahmanda Koni Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. So the Brahmanda means the universe. We've been wandering throughout the universe. We've not just been wandering around planet Earth or wandering around India or Scotland or the UK. We've not just been wandering around our hometown. We've been wandering around the material universe for such a long, long time that we cannot trace it. This is called Nitya Bada, eternally conditioned. So Prabhupada explains this eternally conditioned does not mean that we have always been conditioned. It means that since time immemorial, just like this word perpetual, like if we get a wheel and we spin it, as long as we keep spinning it, then it's perpetuating, isn't it? If you if you put the fan in, the example we hear almost every day, you plug the fan in, as long as it's plugged into the source, the fan will keep going. So this is since time immemorial, we've been perpetuating this conditioning. We've accepted this body as a self, accepted this material world as the reality, despite the fact that what we see is before our eyes is an illusion. It's just a conglomeration of so many molecules and particles. But if you dissect it all, you see actually it's not really there. But even within this illusion of the material world, still we're able to see Krishna. Like here we have pictures of Krishna, and Krishna is kindly taking the form of the deities, and Prabhupada in the form of the spiritual master. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the only thing of real substance in the material world is the jiva and the holy name. Everything else has got no substance to it. So of course, anything related to Krishna has substance, and we see the material world is not irrelevant because it is Krishna's energy, and therefore it has substance. When we see it as Krishna's energy, Krishna's property, we use it in Krishna's service, then it's substantial because that is using a thorn to pluck a thorn. If you have a thorn in deep, and you can get another strong thorn to get it out. So the material world, that is causing us so much misery, but it can be the source of liberation when we use it in Krishna's service. So that is the art of devotional service, to utilize everything for Krishna. And automatically, we become freed from bondage of the material world. And then this wandering throughout the universe, it's such a rare thing. So the example was given that if there's a turtle in the ocean, sometimes you get these turtles which can exist in the salt water, and they're swimming around in, say, the Pacific Ocean, which is a vast body of water. And there's one plank of wood. So sometimes you get a plank of wood and there's a knot in it, and sometimes the knot falls out and there's a little hole there. So there's a plank of wood which has been floating around the ocean for some time. And so just as the turtle is about to surface and bring its head up from the ocean, then along comes a plank of wood and it just sticks its head up and it goes through that hole in the plank of wood. So this is to illustrate how rare it is. First of all, it's rare that the turtle pops its head above the water. That gets a human form of life compared to, and it's even much, much more rare. We can't fathom how rare it is that turtle just pops its head up at the point where the plank of wood goes through the hole in it and it fits through perfectly. So this is how rare it is, considered that the spirit soul meets a bona fide spiritual master. So if you look at it, how many people are on the planet? Is it 6 billion or something?
Close to 8 million. Close to 8 million.
8 million? Of course, it's changing every day, so whatever it was yesterday will be different today. But so there's a huge amount of people there. And how many people have become devotees? Therefore, Krishna says, Manushanam Sahasrashu, that out of many millions of living entities, one may become a human. Out of millions of those, one may endeavor to know the truth. And out of those, one may actually get to know Krishna. So there are many people seeking answers for life, and they take to some spiritual path. And if they're not careful, they'll be misled. They'll simply just be involved in karma kanda, and then perhaps improve their lot and get a better birth next time. But why do you want a better birth? It's like you're in the prison, and someone says, well, you can get out of prison if you just do this. No, I just want a better prison cell. It's exactly like that. But if you get another prison cell, then that means you're not going to get out. Well, that's okay. As long as my situation in the prison is better, we've become institutionalized by the material world. We've become, our affection for Maya is like Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome? It's explaining that someone is kidnapped, and then the person identifies with the perpetrator or the kidnapper as a person who's given them shelter because they feed them, clothe them, put a roof over their head, even though that person that has kidnapped them restricts their freedom. So they become dependent on that person. So this is called the Stockholm Syndrome. And this is how we are with Maya. We're thinking, yes, Maya is so kind. She looks after us. She's giving me all my needs. But actually, Krishna is supplying everything, and Krishna can supply much more. And the things we think we need are only things related to the temporary material body and material attachments. So Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. So we have to try also. It's not just simply that the spiritual master has to do all the work. We have to try. And sometimes we use this word also, try, as a way of defending. If someone comes along and says, oh, you're not chanting properly, I'm trying. You're either chanting properly or you're not. Which one is it? It's not trying. Or, of course, it's not that, someone's genuinely trying and then if you don't get it perfect first time, you're wasting your time. It's not like that. If we're genuinely trying, we will improve. Krishna will give the understanding by which we can come to him. That is there. And even if we have some inability, some deficiency, if we're genuine, then these things, Krishna will make up for what we lack. There was one time, we'll just finish with this interesting story. Devotees had arranged a program for Srila Prabhupada, and they spent a lot of time advertising it, but practically nobody came. And the devotees were feeling, well, we wasted Prabhupada's time. And they went and apologized to Prabhupada later on, and Prabhupada was very happy. He says, no, the program was a success. Didn't you see? Narada Muni was there, and others were there. And they were like, wow. And they said, what were they doing? They said they were laughing. What were they laughing at? They were laughing at the Malechas trying to chant Hare Krishna. So not that they were like saying, I like it, those idiots, but they were in bliss, seeing that the fallen conditioned souls Normally, whatever goes into their mouth is contaminating, whatever comes out of their mouth is contaminating, but they're chanting the holy names, so they're ecstatic. So, of course, the spiritual master is happy to see the disciples engage in devotion service, and happy when he sees us making advancement. And the spiritual master is not envious. Even if the disciple makes more advancement than him, he's happy. He's not envious. Just because perhaps the spiritual master makes 10 disciples, it's not an offense for you to make 20 disciples. It's not that you can't supersede. It's not that you'd ever think you're better than your guru. And Prabhupada showed that example that everything, which his successes were all due to the mercy of his spiritual master, and even the disciples that he had who tried to credit him, he said they're also by the mercy of his spiritual master. The spiritual master sent them along just to help him fulfill this instruction which he was given. So we should never lose hope in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes it's difficult, but just keep steadfast to chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Keep your connection with other devotees. Make friends with devotees, because the devotees are our real friends. And we should, if we're not already connected to a bona fide spiritual master, then we should make definite and serious plans to do that. And this way we can do ourselves a big, big favour. Okay, anyone get any questions or comments? Let's go Govinda ki, Sri Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Tagore Premanande.